The forgotten girl, she was alone. The village was dead. Buildings stood broken, covered in dust. Wind whistled through empty windows. Once, this place was full of voices. Now, only silence. In the corner of a crumbling stone room, the girl lay curled on the floor. Her skin was pale violet. Her long silver hair was tangled and dry. Her clothes were torn. She didn't move much. Only her chest rose and fell. Slowly. Her name was Lyra. She had been forgotten. When her people escaped the war, they left her behind. Too weak, too sick. She remembered watching the ships rise into the sky as she lay on the cold stone, too tired to scream. They didn't even look back. Now, every day felt the same. Wake up. Breathe. Drink from a cracked water pipe. Eat dry roots. Sleep again. Hope someone came. No one did. Until today. Lyra heard something. Heavy footsteps. Crunching over broken gravel. Not like her kind. Not light and fast. These were slow, strong. She sat up quickly. Her body ached, but her eyes were sharp. She peeked. Through a broken wall, a figure was walking into the ruins. Tall, broad, wearing armor that looked dirty and old. Dust covered his helmet. A long metal rifle was slung over his back. Human. Her heart skipped. She had heard of them. Creatures from another system, dangerous, violent, but some said they were kind too. Kind, when you had nothing. Lyra didn't know what to believe. She tried to stay low, but her breathing was loud. He turned toward the sound. He raised one hand, open palm, a signal of peace. Lyra froze. The man stepped closer. Slowly. Then he did something strange. He took off his helmet. His face was rough, tired, but not angry, not cruel. His eyes were calm. I'm not here to hurt you, he said softly. Lyra didn't understand his words, but his voice, it felt warm. He knelt and pulled out a small package from his bag. He placed it on the ground and backed away. Food. She stared at it. He didn't move. He waited. Lyra slowly stepped out of the ruins. Her legs shook. She hadn't eaten properly in days. She picked up the pack and looked at him. He nodded. Just once. That small gesture, so simple, felt like a bridge. Lyra took the food and returned to her corner. The man didn't follow. He just sat nearby on a broken step, watching the empty sky. The next morning, he was still there. He brought more food. This time, he brought tools too. Lyra watched as he cleared rubble from near her room. He began stacking stones, cutting wood, digging into the ground. He was building a shelter. Why? She didn't ask. She didn't speak. But something inside her shifted. Every day, he came back. Every day, he built more. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't try to touch her. Didn't push too close. He worked quietly, and she watched. Then, one morning, he found her sitting outside. She had a small broken bowl in her hands, filled with berries. She held it out. He smiled. That was their first exchange. No words. No promises. Just a gift. Two lost souls. Sharing small things. Her hands were thin, but they began helping. Holding planks, passing nails, stirring small fires. Together, they shaped something new. One wall. Then another. A roof. A door. She hadn't lived in a home for years. Now it was happening again. The stones were cold. But his presence was warm. Lyra didn't know his name. He didn't know hers, but names didn't matter here. Only actions. Only kindness. One night, she couldn't sleep. She stepped outside and found him sitting beside the fire. He was staring at a small photo. Two humans in the picture. A woman and a little girl. His family. Gone. He didn't speak. He just passed her the photo. She looked, then nodded. She understood. Loss was universal. They sat together until the fire died, and for the first time, Lyra felt something strange. Safe. Not because of walls. Not because of food, because someone had chosen to stay. She wasn't forgotten anymore. She was seen. And it was only the beginning. Asterisk the stranger with fire. The fire was small, but it danced like it had purpose. Eli sat beside it, rubbing his hands. Together, the cold air of the alien ruins bit through his jacket. Still, he didn't leave. He was a soldier once. Now he was just a man with tired eyes and no place left to go. His ship had crashed miles away. The others were gone. He had walked alone through the alien dust, searching for anything. Anyone. And then he found her, a ghost of a girl. Thin as a shadow, eyes like moonlight. He didn't speak her language. She didn't speak his, but hunger needed no words. Pain needed no translation. He had seen enough war to know what silence meant. Now, she was watching him, just like every night, hiding behind that half wall, sitting near her stone corner like it was her whole world. She didn't trust him yet, but she didn't run either. Eli reached into his bag and pulled out something new, a small silver lighter. He flicked it once. A blue flame rose, sharp and steady. He smiled at it like it was an old friend. Then he looked at her. He placed the lighter on the ground, next to a small bundle of dry cloth. Then he walked away. He didn't look back. She stared at the lighter. For a long time. Fire. Her people had taken their technology with them when they left. She hadn't seen controlled flame in years, just cold embers. Dying light. She reached out slowly, touched the metal. It was warm. She pulled it back to her corner. That night, for the first time, she made her own fire. It was small, weak, but alive. She held her hands over it, closed her eyes. And for the first time, she slept without shaking. The next morning, Eli returned with metal rods and a bundle of canvas. He began building again, not for himself. For her, a frame for a roof. A thicker wall? A window facing the sunrise. She didn't ask him to, but something inside her wanted him to stay. She walked up to him, quietly, then reached into her small satchel. A glowing fruit, shaped like a tear. Rare. She had been saving it. She placed it on the stone beside him. A gift. He smiled. That was the moment the silence between them changed. They still didn't speak. But the space between them wasn't empty anymore. It was full of understanding. Over the next days, they worked side by side. She learned how to use his tools. He learned how to read her eyes. One day, while hammering a plank into place, Ele hit his thumb and let out a sharp, "Ow!" Lyra blinked, then covered her mouth. Was that a laugh? He looked at her. She looked away, but her lips curled. Just a little. Eli laughed too. It was the first sound of joy this place had heard in years. That night, he built a second fire, not far from her own. 2 fires. 2 people. But the space between them kept shrinking. Eli began teaching her. He drew pictures in the dirt, showed her how his tools worked. Lyra was quick. Her hands were small but skilled. She began repairing small things herself. He watched her carefully. Every movement, every habit. She always stepped lightly. Always looked up at the stars before sleeping. Always whispered something to the fire before putting it out. Maybe a prayer. Maybe a memory. Eli didn't ask. He just listened. One evening, a cold wind blew harder than usual. Her little corner couldn't stop it. She sat near her fire, arms wrapped around her knees, teeth chattering. Eli stood, picked up a thick cloth, and walked to her. She looked at him, unsure. He placed the cloth gently over her shoulders. Didn't speak. Didn't stay, just nodded. Then walked back. She didn't remove it. She clutched it tighter. That night, she didn't sleep in her corner. She moved closer to his fire, still a few feet apart, but closer. That night, Eli stayed awake longer than usual, watching the stars, listening to her breath. He didn't know her story, but he knew what it meant to be left behind. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't so different after all. And maybe, just maybe, fire wasn't the only thing he had brought into her world. Maybe he brought hope too. A shelter of stones. The days were colder now, but something had changed. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was waiting for the man who brought fire, the man who didn't leave. Every morning, before the second sun rose behind the cracked hills, Lyra would sit outside her broken corner, staring into the horizon. Her eyes scanned the sand. Her heart listened for footsteps. And without fail, he came, carrying wood, tools, metal scraps. Sometimes food, sometimes nothing, but always something more. His name was still unknown, but his presence had a shape now, a rhythm, a comfort. One morning, he arrived with large stone blocks. Dragged them in one by one. Lyra watched in silence. He knelt in the dirt and began digging shallow holes. He used metal rods to shape a square in the earth. She tilted her head. He pointed at the ground, then at the sky. Then drew a square in the dust with his finger. A house for her. He wasn't just bringing fire anymore. He was building something permanent. She stepped forward without thinking, picked up a small rock, began clearing space with her hands. He looked at her, surprised, then smiled. That moment, it was quiet, but it meant everything. They worked together, slow at first, then faster. He showed her how to use the metal clamp, how to seal cracks with ash paste, how to test if a stone was strong enough to hold weight. Lyra listened with her eyes. She mimicked his hands. She moved like a shadow beside him, silent, sharp, steady. The walls grew, layer by layer, stone by stone. Not perfect, not beautiful, but strong. And hers. One afternoon, while fixing a corner beam, Eli slipped. His hand scraped against the sharp stone. Blood bloomed instantly. He hissed but waved her off. But Lyra ran inside her small storage area and returned with a strange leaf. Soft, green, glowing slightly. She crushed it between her fingers, then pressed it gently onto his wound. Eli flinched, then relaxed. The pain faded. He looked at her. She was focused, calm, like she'd done this before. When she was done, she looked up. And for the first time, she spoke. Her voice was rough, quiet, but clear. Safe now. 2 words, that's all, but Eli felt them deeper than any speech. He nodded, touched his chest. Thank you. She didn't understand his language, but she smiled anyway. That night, the stars came out brighter. Maybe it was just the clear sky, or maybe something inside both of them had opened. The next day, Lyra brought something from the ruins, a wooden symbol. Worn, cracked, but still whole. She placed it on the new wall, a sign of protection from her culture. Eli didn't know what it meant, but he touched it gently. Then pulled a small item from his pocket. Metal tag, a name etched on it. He placed it beside the wooden charm. Her world. His world. Now, sharing one wall. The roof was the last part. It took them days. The canvas was old. The beams were uneven. But they did it. When it was done, Lyra stepped inside first. She touched the walls, the floor. The roof. Then sat in the middle, cross-legged, still. Her hands rested on her knees. She closed her eyes, breathed in, and whispered something ancient. A song, maybe. Or a prayer. Eli stood at the door, watching. He didn't go in. Not yet. This was her moment. Her rebirth. From cold stone to warm shelter. From forgotten to remembered. When she opened her eyes, she looked at him. Then patted the space beside her. He stepped in. slowly, carefully, and sat beside her. No fire, no food, no noise, just two people. In one home, built not from machines, not from war, but from effort, from hands, from trust. Outside, the wind howled through the empty village, but in that one room, everything was still, and for the first time, the girl who once slept on cold stone slept under a roof, not alone, but protected. The cold that never left, the roof stopped the wind. The walls held back the dust, but inside her chest, the cold remained. Lyra woke before the sun again, not from noise, not from hunger, but from the dreams that pulled her back to the old world, to the day her tribe left, to the last voice that told her she wasn't worth the food she ate. She sat up on the stone floor of their new shelter, breathing hard. Her hands trembled, not from chill, but from memory. Eli was still sleeping near the doorway, wrapped in an old thermal blanket, his chest rising slow and steady. He looked peaceful. She looked away. She didn't understand how someone could carry that much kindness and still sleep like nothing haunted him. Didn't he have pain too? Lyra walked outside and sat on a broken wall. The first sun was rising, painting the sky with soft orange light. Her eyes didn't blink, but inside her mind, the voices kept whispering, "You're a burden. You were meant to be forgotten. You should have died when they left." She pressed her hands to her ears, but the voices were inside. They always had been. That morning, she didn't speak. She didn't eat. She didn't build. Eli noticed. He didn't ask questions. Didn't force her to talk. Instead, he made her tea, set it near her on the stone wall, then walked away. No words. No pressure. Just a gesture. She stared at the steam rising from the cup, held it in her hands. It warmed her fingers, but not her heart. Not yet. The next day, she still said nothing, and the day after that, but she watched. She saw Eli fix the roof, where rain had leaked. She saw him cook without her help. She saw him place her half of the meal in the usual spot. Even though she didn't touch it, he didn't treat her like she was broken. He didn't treat her like she was fading again. He just waited, like a mountain waits for storms to pass. On. The fourth day, it rained. Heavy, hard, cold. Eli grabbed what supplies he could and pulled them into the shelter. Lyra helped, silently but quickly. Her body moved on its own. Her mind still fogged, still stuck in that deep place. That night, the shelter felt smaller. The rain tapped on the roof like 100 tiny fists. Outside was dark. Inside, the fire glowed soft and low. Eli sat near it, polishing the edge of a bent metal plate. Lyra sat in the corner, knees hugged to her chest. He glanced at her. Then he spoke. His voice was soft. "I lost my daughter." She didn't look up, but something inside her paused. "She was 5, he said. Bright eyes. Brave heart." Lyra's breath slowed. "We were supposed to leave Earth together," he continued. "But the ship only had one space left." He stared into the fire. "I told her I'd come back, that I'd find her, that I'd make it right." He swallowed. "I never got the chance." Lyra finally looked at him. His face was calm, but his hands trembled slightly. "You think you're the only one carrying ghosts," he said. "Not cruel, not sharp, just true. You're not." The silence stretched. Then Lyra whispered something. "My brother," her voice cracked, "pushed me out of the ship." Eli's eyes widened. She nodded. "They said I was weak, slowed them down." She looked down at her hands. "Maybe I was." Eli stood slowly, walked over, and sat beside her. Close, but not too close. "You were left," he said, "not because you were weak, but because they were." Lyra closed her eyes. The fire popped. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She leaned her head on someone's shoulder, on his. And the cold inside her cracked. Just a little. The fire in the ruins, the wind carried a strange sound, not the soft hum of morning, not the usual quiet between them. It was sharper, like metal scraping stone. Lyra froze mid-step. She was gathering dry twigs near the edge of the village ruins. Her ears twitched, her breath stilled. Then there it was again. Footsteps, not one, several, heavy, uneven, armed. She dropped the twigs and ran. Eli was just outside the shelter, sharpening a blade with smooth strokes. When he saw her running, eyes wide, breath fast, he didn't ask. He just stood, grabbed his rifle. "Where?" he asked, pointing. Lyra raised a shaking hand toward the north path. That's all he needed. The ruins hadn't seen strangers in months, but now shadows moved at the edge of broken buildings. 5. Maybe 6. Not human. Not her kind either. Scavengers. Nomads. The worst kind. Their armor was mismatched. Their weapons old, but deadly. They didn't speak, but their eyes said everything. They had seen the fire. They had smelled cooked food. They had followed signs of life. And now they wanted it. All of it. Eli pulled Lyra behind a wall. His voice was calm but firm. "Stay here. No matter what happens." She grabbed his sleeve. "No," she whispered. "We fight together." His eyes flickered. That was the first time she had said, "we." He gave a short nod. Then moved. Fast. He knew how to fight. The old kind of fight. The kind where cover matters. Where every bullet has a purpose. The first shot rang through the village, loud, angry. One scavenger fell. The others ducked. They weren't expecting resistance. Not from a human and a half-starved alien. Girl, but this place wasn't empty anymore. It was home, and they would defend it. Lyra ducked through alleyways, quiet as wind. She threw rocks to distract, used mirrors to reflect light into enemy eyes. They didn't know where the shots were coming from. Didn't know how many they were fighting. That fear slowed them. One of them spotted Lyra and charged. She didn't run. She reached into her belt and pulled a glowing blue powder root she had crushed days ago. She threw it into his eyes. He screamed, blinded. She kicked his leg, hard. He fell with a thud. Another tried to flank Eli. Eli turned, fired. Click. Empty. The scavenger grinned. But before he could move, a stone flew through the air, hitting him square in the forehead. He stumbled. Just enough time for Eli to grab a pipe from the ground and swing. The scavenger went down. Hard. 2 more ran. Cowards. The last one stayed behind. He wasn't like the others. He was bigger, heavier, meaner. He carried a shock blade. He pointed at Lyra. "You're worth something," he growled. "Pretty little things fetch high prices." Eli stepped between them. The man laughed. "You gonna stop me, soldier?" Eli didn't answer. He just charged. The fight was rough, close, dirty. Eli took a hit to the ribs. Blood dripped from his lip, but he didn't back down. Lyra picked up the scavenger's fallen blaster. Shaking hands, she aimed. The blade flashed. Eli fell to one knee. She screamed, pulled the trigger. Bright flash. The scavenger dropped. Smoke rose. The village was quiet again. Eli coughed. She rushed to him, pressed her hands to his chest. No, I'm fine," he groaned. "Ribs, not heart." She laughed through her tears. He looked at her, bleeding, bruised. "You saved me," he said. She nodded. "You saved me first." They sat there for a while in the middle of shattered stones and blood-stained dust. Together. Still, alive, still choosing each other. And as the wind picked up again, blowing ash and leaves across the ground, the fire in the ruins burned brighter than ever. Not from wood but from the bond they'd fought for and from now on, no one would take that away from them. Asterisk a new kind of home, the ground still held blood, but the wind felt different now. Lighter. The scavengers were gone, buried beneath rubble, memory, and dust. And Lyra was still here. So was he, but something had changed. The ruins weren't just shelter anymore. They were theirs, built with bruises, built with fire, built with trust. Eli moved slower now. His ribs were wrapped in cloth. Each breath was sharp. But he smiled more. Every morning Lyra was already awake. She swept the ground around their home with a handmade brush. She picked flowers from strange, alien vines and placed them near the door. Every small act whispered the same thing. We belong here. One morning, Eli opened his eyes and found something new beside his bed. A stone pendant. Carved by hand. It was shaped like a flame, Lyra's symbol for strength. On the back, her name was scratched in her language. He picked it up slowly, pressed it to his heart. Then looked outside. Lyra was standing in the garden, her silver hair tied back with a leather cord, her hands in the dirt, planting something. He limped out and sat beside her. She didn't speak, but she placed a small seed in his palm. He stared at it. What is it? She pointed to her chest. Hope. He planted it. Together, they watered it. And in that moment, the war inside both of them slowed. Over the next days, their home grew. Not wider, not taller, but deeper. She painted the walls with symbols of her people. Swirls, stars, eyes that watched over them. Eli built shelves, placed stones, tools, and pieces of his old life on them, his broken come device. A book, a photo of the daughter he lost. One night, Lyra found him staring at the photo. He didn't speak, but his hand trembled. She sat beside him. Then slowly she took a thin cloth from her own things, wrapped it around the photo, tied it like a gift, a way of saying, it still matters. She still matters. He didn't cry, but he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. Later that week, rain returned. Hard, unforgiving. The sky cracked with thunder, but inside their home, it was warm. Eli fixed a leak with metal plating. Lyra cooked stew with dried roots and fire spice. They ate in silence, sitting close. After the meal, she stood and walked to the door. She opened it wide, rain splashing across her face. Then she raised her arms. The rain didn't scare her anymore. It was just water. Not a storm, not a curse, just life. Eli stood behind her. She turned to him. Dance? She asked. He blinked. Then laughed. It was the kind of laugh that sounded young again, and in the middle of the ruins, under cold rain and loud sky, they danced. No music, no rhythm. Just two survivors turning in the mud, laughing like fools. The next morning, everything smelled like earth and ash. But inside the home, it smelled like peace. Lyra braided cords from vines and hung them by the window. Eli carved two handprints into the wall, his and hers. Side by side. Silent vow. Not written, not spoken, but real. One night as they sat watching the fire burn low, Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder again. She whispered, "Thank you." He turned to her. "For what?" "For staying." He placed his hand gently on hers. "I didn't stay," he said. "I found something worth staying for." She didn't answer, but her eyes did, and the way she looked at him, it wasn't the look of someone afraid. It was the look of someone home. She wore stones like a crown. The sun rose soft that morning. No firestorms, no winds, no fear. Just light. It spilled across the ruined stones, brushing over the quiet garden, their small home. And the girl who once slept on cold rock. Lyra stood, barefoot in the soil. Her fingers were stained from planting. Her dress was simple, stitched by hand. Her hair, long and silver, danced in the wind. And on her head, a crown, not gold. Not real. Just a thin band of polished stones woven with roots. Each stone had a memory. One from the first shelter wall, one from the day they danced in the rain, one from the fight they survived. One she placed over his ribs when he was wounded. Each stone meant something. Eli had made it while she slept, quietly, carefully. He had never made jewelry before. But this wasn't jewelry. It was a promise. He stepped out of the home, still limping slightly. The pendant she gave him rested over his chest. She turned when she heard him and smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone rescued. It was the smile of someone chosen. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out something small, a ring, not metal, not forged, made of the same stone as her crown, rounded, smooth. He held it out. I don't know if your people believe in this, he said, but where I'm from, this means forever. Lyra stared at the ring, then at him. Her voice trembled. We believe in promises. He slipped the ring on her finger. No crowd, no priest, just the wind, the stones, and the stars watching. She didn't cry. She wasn't the crying type, but her hand gripped his tight, as if she never planned to let go, and he didn't want her to. That evening, they made a new fire, not in the center of their home, but at the edge of the ruins, where the old path led into the wasteland, where she was once left behind. They placed two things in the fire. His photo of the daughter he lost and the leather cord she wore around her wrist. Since childhood, they didn't burn them, just let the smoke carry them upward, not as grief, but as release. The past had shaped them, but it didn't chain them anymore. Later, they sat in silence again, but now, the silence wasn't heavy. It was sacred. The kind you share with someone who knows your soul. And as the stars blinked above, Eli spoke. You know, he said, if someone saw us now, they'd never believe what we've been through. Lyra chuckled. Let them wonder. The wind carried their laughter through the ruins, through walls that once echoed with war, now echoing with joy. And in that moment, Lyra leaned back on the stones. The same stones that once dug into her skin. Now they felt warm. Not because of the sun, but because she wasn't alone, because she was loved. She had been forgotten once, a ghost with no future. But now she wore stones like a crown, and a ring like a vow. Not because someone saved her, but because someone saw her, stayed, fought, built. And together they had turned ruin into home, pain into memory, silence into meaning. They didn't have a kingdom, but they had each other, and that was more than enough.